Good day, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Corruption, scandals, organized crime, basketball, mafia, TGIF. Of course, by now, many of you heard that the Portland Trailblazers head coach, Chauncey Billups, was charged with participating in an illegal rigged poker scheme tied directly to La Cosa Nostra organized crime families alongside a current Miami Heat player, Terry Rozier, as part of a sprawling federal gambling investigation. Now, this is the first of its kind when it comes of an NBA head coach being involved in any corruption. Cash Patel came out just yesterday, and what people are believing that there are going to be a lot more people that's going to be indicted. There's going to be a lot more people who are going to be arrested, detained, and incarcerated behind this crime ring, and already stated that this is worth roughly $7 to $10 million. Now, in some regards, and you guys may not agree with me, this is not a large corruption ring, in my opinion. When you look at Bernie Madoff and a lot of scammers that have been funneling and money laundering billions of dollars, 7 million on that particular scale is not that much money, but nonetheless, this is lawlessness. This is illegal. If the evidence amounts to that they are indeed guilty, then they should get proper time for the proper crime. And the reason why I stated about corruption and scandals and how this is pretty much on the low totem pole, because if you have enough money, did you know that you can buy yourself out of jail? Are you guys, I mean, think about it. You would think that Jeffrey Epstein, instead of alleged committing suicide, instead of, hanging himself inside of his jail cell, I say that with a large pound of salt, not just a grain, that you can pay your way out of jail. And who has the power in order for you to pay your way out of jail? The president of these United States. They have the power to pardon, to commute sentencing. So why do I bring that up? Because I believe it's utterly important that this next story is going to hit home for a lot of us, because again, this is the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, which has agreed to a massive $4 billion fine, which will be paid to the United States government. And its former CEO, Zhao, pleaded guilty to federal charges for failing to stop money laundering, which has allowed illicit funds to flow through the platform for years. And when I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this money was going to terrorists. Terrorists was actually funneling this money. The U.S. government dealt a massive blow to Binance, the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, which agreed to pay a roughly $4 billion settlement Tuesday as its founder and CEO, Zhao, pleaded guilty to a felony related to his failure to prevent money laundering on the platform. So he had information, he had metrics and statistics to state that there were people doing illegal activity on his platform, and he did nothing to stop it. So Zhao stepped down as the company's chief executive officer, and Binance admitted to violation of the Bank Secrecy Act and apparent violations of sanction programs, including its failure to implement reporting programs for suspicious transactions. They actually had information that a lot of the transactions through cryptocurrency by the way of terrorist organization was suspicions. It said using new technology to break the law does not make you a disruptor. It makes you a criminal, said U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, who called the settlement one of the largest corporate penalties in the nation's history. Now, as part of the settlement agreement, the U.S. Treasury said Binance will be subject to 5 years of monitoring and significant compliance and undertakings, including to ensure Binance complete exit from the United States. Binance is a Cayman Islands limited liability company. It seems like a lot of these illegal crime transactions always going through the Cayman Islands. That's one of the heavens, so to speak, or the land masses that people use, because Cayman Islands don't have any regulations or laws, and they don't have any extradition of any information. But again, they're stating that Binance can no longer do business in America. My only question, or rather two questions here, all the Americans that had Bitcoin and altcoins and cryptocurrencies within Binance, did they cash out? Would they be afforded the opportunity to get their money back, or is it just all loss? And you were saying, well, how can they pay their way out of jail? Well, $4 billion is a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why I say that, I mean, we all know $4 billion is a lot of money unless you are Elon Musk or Warren Buffett or somebody up, Jeff Bezos, etc., who are billionaires. $4 billion is extremely a lot of money, because I want you guys to think about it on these terms. For every $1 billion, that is $1,000 million. So you can't even fathom. The Powerball is $400 million. This thing about $1,000 million, which is $1 billion. But this next part, this is one that gets me about being in a corrupt society, in a corrupt nation. Okay. And don't forget, I believe that in some regards, majority of politicians, from the president down to the city councilman, are in some form of corruption. Is either loud or quiet, is either public or private. That's just the way I look at it. Okay. Now, Binance ex-CEO gets pardoned, right? The exchange crypto coin rises. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Binance coin's price increased by 5%. News of a presidential pardon for founder of Binance, CEO or former CEO of Binance, Zhao. And it goes on to state that the price of the crypto coin Binance coin rose more than 6%. Zhao pleaded guilty back in 2023 to failing to maintain an effective anti-money laundering program at the crypto exchange. And the exchange agreed to pay $4 billion to resolve Justice Department charges. Zhao served a 4-month jail term in 2024. President Trump exercised his constitutional authority by issuing a pardon for Mr. Zhao, who was prosecuted by the Biden administration in their war on cryptocurrency. White House press secretary, the Biden administration war on crypto is over. So all these corrupt people from all these different nations who do business in America, you remember when you had these crypto ledgers and you could never remember your 13, 15 digit code? I know I lost $2,000. I could not remember. They say write it down. I wrote it down. I put it on my Google Keep. I put it in my notes. I just couldn't find it. So I lost $2,000. Not a lot of money to those guys. But President Trump pardoned this criminal that we have evidence. That's why he was locked up for only 4 months. Listen, when I look at some of the billionaires who went to jail, who have not committed, suicide or wasn't murdered in jail, a lot of them really haven't stayed that long. Look at Sean Diddy Combs. When he went into jail, prison, that is, he was valued roughly at $1 billion. But we know he's black, so the laws really are different with black people. We actually get prosecuted at the full extent of the law. No laughing matter, no less. This is the way that white supremacy works around the world, let alone in America. Now, again, some of you guys may not understand what that exactly means. Stay here a little bit longer and we'll get to it. Harry Weinstein, how's he doing in prison? Or is he out yet? I want you guys to define that as well. But this guy basically paid the American government $4 billion, allegedly, in order for him to do 4 months. So it's like, hey, man, you did 4 months, give us $4 billion, you'll be out. And then President Trump pardoned him. Now, here's my thing, stemming back from this story right here. Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, he knows you guys are not billionaires, but, you might want to fit in the pockets of the U.S. government. You may want to say, hey, President Trump, we have $10 million. Can you pardon us as well? They really don't have any hard evidence, but they do have us linked to a lot of these mafiosos and these crime families. Any way that you can pardon us? Because, again, you pardon the former CEO of Binance, that he admitted that he had suspicious activity on his platform that was linked to terrorist organization. He pleaded guilty, but paid $4 billion. This reminds me of every ancient, well-known European white civilization. That if you are part of the political party, if you are part of the elite class, you can pay your way out of jail. You can pay your way out of prison. He only did 4 months. And in my regards, and again, this is just my conjecture when it comes to this. If you had information that people were using your platform to send and funnel money to terroristic organizations that will carry out terroristic acts across the nation, especially America, because it seems like every terrorist group hates America, and you have a headquarters in America, you then pay $4 billion, and then the president pardons you, talking about the war on crypto is over. This has nothing to do with cryptocurrency. That is just the conduit. That is just the method of money being laundered and being sent back and forth to terror organization. This is about terrorism. And they are allowing it. They didn't even commute his sentence. They pardon this guy. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. This is not right. This is not right. And then, of course, Binance coin price increased by 5%. So now they're making hand over fist and they're making money. These are the faces, not just him. These are the faces of terroristic crime through money laundering in America and let alone around the world. But people are making this a big story because some basketball players, black no less, were in bed with the mafia. And that so far, they say, it's probably an indictment of more than 30 people across the United States, but they robbed people between $7 million and $10 million. Hey, they should get their just due as well. No one should go free if you're committing crimes in America. No one. But don't make this a bigger story, because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Did you guys even hear about this story? Did you guys even hear about this story that he got pardoned? Now, you might have heard that when it first dropped, because during the Biden administration, but quiet as it kept, you had to go all the way to Barron's, which is a financial website, to know that this guy got pardoned and that they paid $4 billion to the federal government. And we don't even know if Binance will be able to operate in America, because under the Biden administration, it stated that it could no longer conduct business in America. But now that Trump is in office and they stated that the war on cryptocurrency is over, that they can come back. No, they should be banned for life. We have plenty of cryptocurrency organizations in America that are not doing corrupt operations. I digress. I know there's a double standard here in America, triple standard. But leave your comments below. If you're new to Blacklogic, please hit that subscribe button as well as the like button. And if you have anything that you want to comment, please let me know down below. Now, President Trump reversed his plan to deploy federal troops. Again, the powerful and the rich. I just want to kind of give you that base before I contextualize on this particular news story, because he reversed his plans to deploy federal troops for an immigration enforcement surge in San Francisco after receiving direct calls and pleas from powerful Silicon Valley leaders like Mark Benoff, who asked the president to back off and give the city a chance. So even though this is a Democratic liberal state and city like San Francisco, again, friends of President Donald Trump, all these billionaires rubbing elbows. Let me blow this up for you guys, because I think this is, again, this tells you about the corrupt nature of the elite as well as in politics. President Trump said Thursday that he's calling off plans to deploy federal troops to San Francisco after having spoken to the mayor and following backlash from the tech industry. So he spoke to the mayor like, Mr. President, we're really doing all we can to curtail and decrease the amount of crime here in San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. But that really didn't persuade President Donald Trump. You know why? Because the tech industry came out and they spoke with President Trump. It states that the federal government was preparing to surge San Francisco, California on Saturday. But friends of mine, the president always reveals his hand. But friends of mine who live in the area called last night to ask me not to go forward with the surge, and that the mayor, Mayor Laurie, was making substantial progress. Trump said on Truth Social. He added that the friends included the CEO of NVIDIA and the CEO of Salesforce. These are multi-billion dollar businesses. The people of San Francisco have come together on fighting crime, especially since we began to take charge of that very nasty subject. Great people like Jensen Hong, Mark Barnoff, and others have called, saying that the future of San Francisco is great. They want to give it a shot. Therefore, we will not serve San Francisco on Saturday, Trump wrote. So basically, your billion-dollar friends from these tech companies, that some of them even stated that they're going to invest $100 billion inside of America, hand over fist. Corruption comes in many different ways. It comes right in your face, or just like the NBA scandal with Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, and Damon John. We knew nothing about it until Cash Patel came on national TV to tell us all. But this is right in your face. He said, oh, friends of mine called me from NVIDIA and Salesforce and told me to back off, and that, you know, they're doing all they can in San Francisco. So I'm not going to deploy the National Guard troops. No, do what you were going to do, President Trump. Oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not understanding, whether you are Republican or Democrat or independent, if you're not understanding the level of corruption in politics, and again, it is corruption in the Biden administration, corruption in the Trump administration, corruption in the Obama administration, corruption in the Reagan and Carter and Clinton, you name it, the Bush administration, all this corruption, but they keep telling the American people it's the left that's doing all this liberal and woke stuff. Oh no, it's the right that's cutting healthcare. They're all dealing in corruption. And they're playing the American people as fools, and they have it right here in front of our face. And they say, you won't do nothing about it. You know why the American people really don't have power? Because every single politician will come out on public TV. All of them. They will come out on public TV and they will say, we live in a democracy. And then when you say, well, what does the Constitution of the United States of America state? Oh, we live in a republic. Oh, what does a republic mean? That means that you have representatives that represent the American people. That when laws and legislation go through the process of being signed into law, that the American people doesn't have a say so. The only thing that you can do is lobby and protest and march. But at the end of the day, you can show you this thing. And the only reason why some of these politicians may change their mind is because they're looking for another term. They want another 2 years. They want another 4 years. But if they feel as though they're about to retire, they're like, nope, we don't care. We're just going to do whatever we want to do because we are the representatives of the people. And you would think they will represent you in kind and in deed. You would think that Affordable Health Care Act will get an extension so 5 million Americans will be covered. Nope. You would think that organizations like Binance that help aided and supported transactions to terroristic organization, that their CEO will stay in prison and that he couldn't pay him his way out, and that Binance will be banned from doing business in America. Nope. You would think that you had this information because that's why you made it public that you were going into San Francisco because of the lawlessness and high crime and a lot of unsheltered people on the street and public spaces, that you were going to do the same thing that you did in DC, that you was going to do the same thing that you're doing in Chicago right now. But no, your billion-dollar friends call you alongside the mayor, again, to make it seem somewhat political, but this is just about money. Dirty, stinking money. People say that the root of all evil is money. No, it isn't. It's the people with money and what they do with that money. And we're seeing it right here, right now. This is Cover Up Friday, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen so much corruption all in 1 week. Golly. Whew. President Trump abruptly announced he was terminating all trade negotiations with Canada, citing what he called egregious behavior over a recent Canadian government-funded television ad criticizing U.S. tariffs that use a clip of former President Ronald Reagan. So now we are being petty as hell that an ad, a commercial in Canada is in somewhat, as the U.S. government stated, egregious behavior of a former President Ronald Reagan, that now we have terminated all trade talks, and because they're criticizing tariffs. Because don't forget, the whole tariff narrative really came out of the Ronald Reagan administration, by the way. That is where President Trump kind of got that tariffs is a beautiful word. We're going to use tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. That was Ronald Reagan's whole platform and what he was going to do, his whole strategy. And President Trump is taking that strategy and he is running with it. I'm not saying it's a bad strategy, but it doesn't look good so far. Doesn't look good so far. Hopefully it pans out, because again, I want America to succeed. I really do. So I hope that, just like a stock, initially it starts off kind of bad, and then over time it gains traction, and then you start to make good profit. I hope tariffs become profitable later on. But for us to cease trade talks with our northern neighbors because they had a commercial ad, I don't know if it was created by the government or an independent source there in Canada, that we're going to stop because of Ronald Reagan, because they said something negative about tariffs. Hey, so basically you have freedom of speech according to the First Amendment in America, but we want to punish Canada in some regards, not all regards, because they're literally punishing ourselves. Because do not forget, we get electricity from Canada, some, not all, some electricity from Canada. Canada actually manufactures some of our steel. Canada actually manufactures some of our vehicles. So again, I don't know how this is going to rise costs here in America, but again, this is a straight out petty to me. This is straight out petty to me, ladies and gentlemen. This is Corrupt Friday at its best. TGIF.